Hey guys, Chris Peach here, and welcome to the Money Peach podcast. Hey, do you remember growing up learning how to handle money? Yeah, neither do I. So that's why we're here today, to make your money fun again. You know, we're going to talk about the principles in life that actually matter when it comes to managing your money in a way that works. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Money Peach podcast. Before we jump into another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast, I want to take a second to talk to you guys about my free live training event, Stop Living Paycheck to Paycheck and Just Live. Join me each week on this live webinar where I show you the 4-step system we use to go from living paycheck to paycheck to later paying off $52,000 in debt in only 7 months. And as a bonus for joining me on this live training, I'll be answering any questions you may have during the live Q&A session at the end. So head on over to moneypeach.com/webinar to get registered. Welcome back, everyone, to another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. I'm Chris Peach. This is episode 34. I'm super excited today because today I'm bringing on a good friend of mine, Justin from Milmac Industries. Justin is a police officer. He's a member of their SWAT team. Him and his wife just recently paid off all of their debt, and he also runs a business. He makes custom knives for knife enthusiasts, for tactical responders, or anybody out there that just likes having a really high-end knife. They're all custom made. We're going to talk about that. And I might have put him on the spot to force him to offer Money Peach listeners a coupon code at the end. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Without further ado, let me bring on my good friend, Justin from Milmac Industries. All right, Justin, thanks so much for coming on the show today. I don't want to give you too much of an intro because you have such an incredible story. So let's just go ahead and start off. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you're about, and what we're going to talk about today.
My name is Justin. I have a company called Milmac Industries that kind of specialize in custom-made knives and some safety and training stuff. I'm a police officer for a pretty big city here in the Southwest, and I'm debt-free.
Cool. The last phrase that he said there, if you weren't paying attention, was he is debt-free. So that's kind of how Justin and I, it's not where we met. I mean, we met at the gym, and I think you're going to see a lot of the guests that I have on the show, you meet at the gym. I feel like there's one place where everybody's going to meet somebody, and for me, it just happens to be the gym. So you meet a lot of unique people there. So I meet Justin and his wife at the gym a couple years ago, and so I don't know how it got started, but we started one day just talking about money, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I knew that you had been doing some of the debt-free classes and just started picking your brain about it.
Yeah. So, I told the story about when we were getting started with our business as far as doing financial coaching. In the beginning, we didn't really realize we were doing financial coaching. I had a blog and I was doing that kind of thing. But as far as the financial coaching aspect, I really didn't know we were doing it. We were basically just sitting down over dinner with some friends and being like, oh, here's how you do a budget. Oh, here's the way you should pay off your debt. I don't use your name, but when I'm telling people about one of our earliest, the very, very beginning, our financial coaching sessions, it was you and your wife.
It was, man. It was at your house having some dinner and just kind of talking about some things. And we were kind of on the right path, but we were just not being efficient. So we needed some guidance. And there you were.
Take us to now February 14th? Was it Valentine's Day this year?
It was.
What happened on that day?
So February 14th this year, Valentine's Day, we didn't buy each other gifts. Our gifts to each other was paying off the final payment on my wife's student loans. So that was the last box to check, and took care of that.
Yes, it is your wife's student loan, but I remember when we talked, I was telling you that it is your wife's student loan, but however, when you get married, it's also your student loan. So you guys paid off your student loan, but that wasn't it. How much debt did you guys pay off?
We did, yeah. So the only reason we paid off hers is because we had already paid off mine. So just to be fair. Mm-hmm. So we paid off right about $35,000.
In how many months or how many years?
Took us just under 2 years to do that.
Wow. And so when you first sat down and looked at it, what were you thinking? How long did you think it was going to take to pay off $35,000?
Oh gosh, back then you were looking at it and it seems like such a mountain, it's you see a credit card statement and they give you the expected payment date, like if you pay minimums, and it was like 2035 or something, like something ridiculous. So didn't think it would ever happen that quick.
So how did you go about paying off $35,000? I mean, you work for the police department, and the police department doesn't just call you up one day and say, hey, Justin, we want to give you an enormous raise. So what were some of the ways you were able to either generate income, pay off debt quicker? I mean, how did you get this done so quick?
I think one of the biggest things for us was just having a plan and a way to attack it, which you helped us with, man. That was instrumental. So trying to figure that out, just like when you work out, man, you have to go to the gym and you have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan when you go in there, you're just going to kind of might do a set of this, might do a set of that, but you really don't make progress. So having that plan as far as how we are going to pay off debt is kind of what set us in the right direction. Started doing working a little bit of overtime with the police department, kind of just started being smarter about money and paying attention to money and where we were spending it, and got rid of the credit cards right off the bat.
So how did you get rid of them? Did you just put them in a drawer, or what'd you do?
No, we cut them up. They were gone. Like, they were gone to not be a temptation. I think that's what you got to do.
And I say this over and over again. You cannot dig your way out of debt. So if you have credit card debt and you think that you're not going to use them, cut them up. I mean, just cut them up, because if you're somebody who carries credit card debt, you're not good with credit cards. And I'm not beating you up. I'm not beating myself. I'll beat myself up, but I'm not beating you up saying that you're horrible with credit cards. I'm just saying, if you're someone out there who continually carries a balance, then the easiest way to stop going further into debt is to simply cut the cards up. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to cut their cards up, but I know you did that. Andrea and I did the exact same thing. And that's what we needed to do, because if they were in pieces, it was a lot harder to use them.
Exactly, right? They got to be gone. If they're going to be there, you're going to keep using them. For us, it was that simple. We just couldn't have them. It didn't make sense. And I think it just kind of finalizes your commitment to put in the work and do it. It's kind of like symbolic in a way. It kind of sounds cheesy, but it's true, right? Like, you're making a commitment to do this, and once you get rid of those things, it's game on. What
about your wife? Was she on board with this whole idea of taking back control of your money, getting out of debt?
Yeah, absolutely. She was definitely on board. I think it was just to the point where we were both college graduates. She has a master's degree, just working way too hard and not having a ton to show for it. Like, yeah, we have a decent house, we had decent cars, and we weren't hurting. We just weren't being smart. So we had both just come to that point that we were on board, and it was time for a change and to get serious about it, not to mess around anymore.
Something that I thought was really cool was, obviously we've been friends now for a couple of years, and I've been watching you and your wife go through this process. One of the things I saw is you guys took a vacation, and I remember you guys came back from vacation. The first thing you said, I said, how was your vacation? And the first thing you said before you told us about it, you said, well, when we went on vacation, we didn't come back with debt.
It's true, man. It was like, it's amazing. I don't think we had ever done that before, but we went last year. It was our 10-year anniversary trip, right? Came back, we had saved up money. We came back, we paid cash for everything, and there was no burden of a trip when we got home. Like 5 years ago, we would have been throwing that on a credit card and we would have been paying for it 6 months down the road, but no, we paid cash for everything. And it's just an awesome feeling to know that you come back and your finances aren't messed up because of an indulgence that you took or a trip that you took.
Yeah. The worst thing about going on vacation on debt is that vacation comes home with you. And it sticks with you for about, sometimes 6 months to a year in the form of interest payments. So that $2,000 vacation ends up becoming a $3 or $3,000 vacation over the course of a year. And you want to go on another vacation, but you're still paying off the old vacation. That's the way it seems like it works for so many people. And so I go back to just watching you guys. You just became more efficient with your money. You created a plan, like you said, and you stuck to it. Personal finance is personal. It's personal to everybody. It's a little bit different for everybody. It's not cookie cutter. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. And so I think the flavor that you guys put together was, obviously it worked for you. You guys still lived, still enjoyed life, but you also, February 14th, 2017, you're debt free. So what does life feel like now that you are debt free?
Awesome. It's the coolest thing when you get a paycheck and gosh, it goes to, you have like your utilities, maybe a cell phone bill and that, but you're not paying on a loan. You're not paying on a credit card. You're not paying a vehicle payment. Like, to be able to save money is just a pretty awesome feeling. Like, to not have anything looming over your head that you're not making progress on is awesome.
Yeah, I remember the text I got was, this is like the biggest raise we've ever got.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. You go from paying these payments and paying on stuff and And when you're paying on those things with all that interest, you're not even getting 100% of your money towards it. Like, you're paying so much interest that it's ridiculous. So then you go to not having those payments, and it's huge. It's like your hourly wage went up 30%. It's ridiculous.
That's awesome. I mean, there's a reason why if you go downtown, all the buildings have, they're all named after banks, right? I mean, that's the interest you just talked about. All right. So I love that it's good to have you on the show because, one, you're debt free. But I also want to talk about something else that's, I think, going to interest a lot of people. Talk about growing up, and then we'll transition into you being a police officer.
So growing up, I had an awesome childhood. Had a couple rough patches there, but grew up in Phoenix. My dad worked for the post office. My mom did the same, and then she kind of stayed home, but grew up being active, staying busy. We never really had a lot of money, but we were never hurting for money. Like, I never remember that. I never remember thinking of us as not having enough money. And then things kind of took a little change. When I was 10, my dad passed away kind of suddenly out of nowhere from a heart attack. And that I think that changed everything for all of us, right? My mom was not working at the time, so my dad was the sole provider for us. So she obviously had to go back to work. And one of the crazy things, just to go kind of back into the finance stuff, was I want to say when my dad passed away, I think they owed like $18,000 left on their house, right? And then she had to end up taking out refinancing and taking out money just so we could get by. No fault of her own. Like, it is what it is, and she wasn't ready for that, as none of us were. But I think that's kind of where my financial learning, my idea of money kind of started, seeing that. And I could see she kept it hidden from us a lot, but I could see there were struggles, man. Like, there was credit cards, there was stuff. Like, I remember one time, like, walking in and seeing her sitting at a desk paying bills, and she had tears in her eyes because of what was happening. And it was heartbreaking, and that always stuck with me. Obviously that was a rough transition there, but my mom's a freaking amazing lady, man. She raised me and my brother, and I think we both turned out pretty good. So I can't say enough good things about her.
So at 10 years old, you get kind of, I guess, an adult lesson in life. And I say adult lesson because I think from talking to you, what you went through at 10 years old is sometimes what people in their 50s don't handle very well. So you're 10 years old, and this is the cards you were dealt, right? You're going to have to move on from here. You have no other choice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're 10. So I think that's one thing, like, I think people always try to talk about. It sucks any way you go. Like, if you're 10 and you lose your parent, it sucks. If you're 20 and you lose your parent, it sucks. If you're 50 and you lose your parent, it still sucks, right? At 10, it was what I was. And I was a kid, so I don't think I quite understood the depth of what had happened at the time. I just knew my dad I knew my dad wasn't gone, but I didn't think down the long term to, like, those things. Like, oh, he's never going to see me play football. He's never going to see me graduate the police academy. He's never going to meet my wife. He's never going to see my kids. At 10 years old, you don't really think about those things, right? But yeah, it was the hand I was dealt, and it's his life, right?
Talking about money, then, you had said that you had watched your mom, pay bills with tears in her eyes. So what's the overall feeling? How did you feel about money over the course of your lifetime? Was it something that scared you? Was it something that you felt like it was a responsibility? Tell me your feelings about just money in general. Because I think every single one of us, Justin, we get financial habits from somewhere, good or bad. I think we get both, but we get them from somewhere. And I think I tell people a lot, more is caught than taught. The stuff that you see as a child is what you're going to learn, not the stuff you were actually taught, right? We talk about that with our own kids, but what would you say from that situation with your dad passing away when you were 10 years old and your mom being left with the bills, technically, and 2 kids? How did that start your vision off with the finances?
I knew I always wanted to have myself set up financially, to say. And I think I kind of lost track of that a little bit. I think once I got married, my wife and I were both in our careers, making decent money for just a young married couple. So we didn't pay too much attention to it at that time. But I know that once I had kids, that's when stuff really started to change, and you started to think more about being prepared and those things. And I knew that I just wanted to have my finances in order, because I would never want my wife to have to take on that burden on top of it. So I think that's kind of where I started really being more conscious of money and thinking about things and going that route.
Justin, I remember when we sat down together at that kitchen table a couple of years ago, we had talked a lot about what we just mentioned right now with your dad passing, your mom taking over the bills. Thank you for sharing that, because I know it's not the easiest thing to talk about. I'm glad you did share with that, because I know there has to be somebody listening that, has lost a parent or lost a loved one. The biggest advice that I could give to anyone who's listening is get life insurance. I mean, don't delay that, because it's such a simple thing to do. I was just looking up rates the other day. If you're 35 years old and you go out and you get $500,000 of coverage, and this is for somebody that doesn't smoke, doesn't use tobacco products, it was like $31 a month.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like you have to have it. Like it can help so many things, and it can solve so many issues in a time that is going to be horrible to begin with, that they don't need other stuff on their plate. Like it's one of the best things you can do, I think, for sure.
I think it's one of the best things you could do to say I love you to your family. I mean, like, we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And the last thing I would want is for my wife, who, if she worked or didn't work, to be left at home with me being gone, and then, oh yeah, by the way, there's all these bills you have to take care of. The income's going to be cut in half. I mean, there's all these things that happen. And if you just make that choice to say, look, I'm going to go and get life insurance. I know it's not sexy, it's not fun to do, but I promise you, it's one of those things, and I remember you had told me the same thing, that once you got it, it was like, all right, that part's out of the way. I don't have to think about it anymore. And it kind of makes you feel good that, okay, I did something, right? I just took action. I hit a checklist. I checked something off, that I actually just did something, because you know firsthand what it's like.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's just like you said, man, it's something that they will not have to worry about. It's another worry that can be gone, right? That's the last thing you want them worrying about if something does happen to you, is worrying about finances. That's something you can do for your family to take care of that, to alleviate that if anything bad does happen. So I think, yeah, it's a no-brainer for me.
So we'll put links in the show notes to anything that we talk about inside this episode. We have a couple articles on the blog in regards to life insurance, how it works, how to get it. So we'll put links in there. So let's transition in now to, so you've been a police officer for, I think, about 12 years now?
Yeah.
Why did you become a police officer?
Gosh, so it was growing up, right? I thought, just like every kid that plays sports in high school, like I thought I was going to play professional football. Like that was the goal, right? Everyone thinks that. And then I got to college and got hurt and saw that slowly drift away. So I had always liked team stuff. That was kind of my thing. And honestly, I just was never just a big fan of bullies or people that took advantage of people. I kind of always had a sense of helping people and kind of just watching out for people. And I wanted a career that I could do that with. And honestly, one of the things that attracted me too is just the benefits that come along with that job.
So benefits being security?
Yeah, security and pension. I think those are huge things to think about. And luckily I had someone talk to me about it before I went into a career, and it made a ton of sense to me.
That's, you and I are along the same lines. I work for the fire department, you work for the police department. Usually you don't see too many firefighters and cops, on a podcast together or even getting along. But that's a whole other side note. But that was another reason why I looked at, one of the things I looked at when I wanted to become a fireman was obviously it was, like being on a sports team. I thought I was going to play professional football as well. I didn't even make it to college. But I looked at that going, wow, the fire department, it's like you rely on each other. You have like a little team, our little fire truck, there's 4 guys on it. We're a 4-person team, and then our battalion is a 24-man team, But then there was also the security. My parents are both entrepreneurs, and I love being an entrepreneur myself, but it's not steady, right? It's up and it's down. And when you're starting off, it's tough, because when you're starting off in the world of being an entrepreneur, sometimes there is no paycheck, right? Your paycheck is working a job you don't like to at least provide food on the table so you can build a business that you love. When I became a fireman, I thought, well, this is cool. They pay me every 2 weeks no matter what, right? Every 2 weeks, I'm getting a paycheck. And so I think there's best to both worlds there. So let's talk about you've been a police officer, but what have you been doing? So you've been on for, you said 12 years, correct?
Yeah.
What have you been doing the last 8 of those 12 years?
So the last 8 years I've been on my department's SWAT team.
Okay, so we have had some very, very good conversations in the past, just you and I over a beer, talking about, the SWAT team. And it's a lot different hearing it from you than what I see in a movie or on TV. What are you allowed? What can you tell me about the SWAT team? And I just want to start off with, let's say that I know, like, sometimes you and I will be hanging out and you'll say, I'm on call, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then all of a sudden your pager goes off and you're gone. You leave right then, where are you going? How does that, I think it's interesting to talk about, but I think it's a little bit different from the movie. So where are you going when your pager goes off and you're like, gotta go?
So kind of a variety of situations, right? Could be a search warrant that we have to go find. We have information on a homicide suspect. It could be an armed robbery suspect that they have information on that they're following that we need to go try to arrest. It could be a barricade, right? A guy in a house by himself that's armed saying he's not coming out. And the rare occasion, it could be a hostage situation where someone's taking someone and making threats to hurt them, and we have to respond to kind of come out and deal with that.
But you've been involved in all those types of situations already?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, you talk about your guys, your crew. So how many guys do you work with on this team, on your SWAT team?
So we have a fairly big team, right? Our team is about 45 guys whole. And then we're separated down into like smaller teams, and each one of those is about 8 to 10 guys. Okay.
And so these 8 to 10 guys, how does it work? Obviously, I can only imagine you guys have a certain job that you do, but is there certain jobs? Like, give an example. We were at a birthday party one time, and I asked the guy, "How do you know Justin?" And I think he said like he was your explosives guy. And I'm like, "Well, all you do is explosives?" And he just kind of laughed. And so I didn't realize that. I guess everybody has a certain job. So can you kind of explain how that works?
Yeah, so each guy on the squad will have a specific job that they're responsible for. Like, we all have certain skills that everyone is responsible for maintaining, just general skills, but then everyone kind of specializes in a position. So you have guys that, like you said, are specialize in explosive breaching, right? Using explosive to gain entry into certain areas to explosively breach an area. We have guys that run less lethal and gas systems that we can use those things to deploy on situations if we need to. We have snipers on each team. We have a negotiator. We have guys that are dedicated as our kind of front guys that are responsible for looking at locations and kind of pre-planning stuff too.
Okay. So you guys get called out. Everybody has to do their job, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So
if one person fails to do their job, is it safe to say that, lives could be in jeopardy then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that attracts people to our job, and one of the things that turns people away. It's not you hear the term thrown out all the time, right? Like this is life or death. This is, we're really counting on you. Well, like our job when we're dealing with stuff, it's true. Like this is no joke. If we're dealing with a bad guy in a house, it's this house that has a rifle and the sniper's not watching the door, he's not covering his team, right? He's not doing his job. If the negotiator's not talking to this guy and getting them to try to give up so it doesn't have to escalate, so nothing has to happen, he's not doing his job. All those things are crucial to kind of what we do.
Wow. Yeah, that's when you talk about it, you sound so just like, yeah, it's life or death, but I guess you're so used to it, 8 years being on the SWAT team. But yeah, when we have these conversations about it, it's interesting to hear your take on it, that it's definitely life or death. And you're just kind of pause, and I'm thinking, wow, life or death. Like, we joke around saying, oh yeah, it was touch and go, but you're being serious.
Yeah, no, it's serious, right? It's a big deal. And I think we don't downplay it. You know what I mean? It's not that. I think it's just, we test to come to this position. We know what we're getting into, right? It's guys that want to be put in those positions to make critical decisions to save lives. Like that's our main goal, right? Like everyone sees the movies and sees the TV shows, and they're like, oh, the SWAT team, like they just go around shooting their guns and getting shot at and all the time. And that's definitely not what we want to do, right? Like, I think everyone is maybe a little excited when they first come to the team about like they want to get involved in certain situations, and then you've been on the team for a while and like you realize that stuff's for keeps. Like those are real bullets that are coming at you. Those are real situations that'll take you away from your family and from your kids, and like your life is literally on the line. It's not a game. It's not something we joke about, It's a serious deal. Just like all cops, man. Like we kind of joke around, I think, sometimes because we have a ton of equipment and we have a lot more gear and we get a lot more training than a patrol officer, right? Which we all were. Like, you have to be a patrol officer before you come to SWAT, but we have the benefit for the most part of knowing what we're going into, right? Like a guy pulling a car over in the middle of the night, just doing a traffic stop. I think, in my opinion, like that's more dangerous than what we do.
Yeah, that's a good take on it. You think SWAT is the dangerous thing, but yeah, you make a good point. I mean, guy pulls somebody over for speeding middle of the night. He doesn't know what that guy has in store for him, or that girl for that matter. So, well, before we go any further, I just want to thank you for your service. For me, I got to say that, being a fireman and working alongside you guys, I mean, we rely on you guys more than you probably know. I mean, anytime something gets a little sticky, we're quick to call PD, and the stuff that scares the crap out of us, you guys pretty much handle right away. And then we feel pretty stupid.
Well, no, thank you guys.
Thank you for doing what you do. I mean, it takes, I think, a special person not to just, sign up to be a police officer, because you could be out there making a lot more money somewhere else, right? You chose to be an officer, and it's a dangerous job. I mean, unfortunately, in the city that I work for, we do about one officer's funeral a year, which that's a lot.
It is.
That's a lot. All right, so I just want to say thank you for that, and we really appreciate that. I mean, I think everybody listening appreciates their officers. I hope they do, because, I mean, these guys, they leave their families to go help a complete stranger with knowing that there's definitely a possibility I'm not going to come home. And not many people can say that with their own jobs. Not many people want to be able to say that. And so you do that. How many hours do you work a week?
Oh, gosh. Anymore, it's like 50 to 60.
So, yeah, 50 to 60 hours a week. That's, wow. And then hats off to, spouses of police officers as well, because every time you leave, it's that same thing of, all right, I'm hoping he or she comes home. Okay, so we talked about SWAT. Now I want to transition into, I joke around, but, every firefighter has a business, right? I mean, in the fire department I work for, I had just on the show the other day, I had one of my firefighter friends who is a highly, highly productive, successful real estate agent. But we have people from all walks of life in the fire department. They all have a job, right? I mean, we don't sign up for the fire department to get rich. I mean, just like you didn't sign up for the police department to get rich, right? We're going to have a steady income. It's going to be nice. But I think a lot of times you have people that, they find something they're passionate about, maybe not right away, and they build that business alongside of their full-time job. And I don't like to call it part-time, because there's no such thing as part-time. It's full-time and full-time. So you do something that's extremely unique, and I want you definitely to talk about it.
My company is called S.W.A.T Industries, and it kind of started out as custom handmade knives, right? That's where it started about a few years back. And it really didn't even start out as a business, It started out as a way for me to kind of decompress, a little hobby. I could go out in the garage and fiddle with some tools and make something with my hands. It was just kind of an awesome stress reliever for me that I would do. I've kind of always been into that stuff, used to weld in college and do some of that stuff. So being an officer, right? If there's cops listening, they can relate to being like a total gear nerd, right? And knives and guns and all that. And same thing, I always have liked knives. And one day I was looking and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could make one of those. So that's kind of how it started out.
So I didn't know right away you made knives. You didn't share it with me when we first met. We've been friends for a couple months, and then we had you over for dinner, and we did our the first step in the direction to getting on a plan. We set up your budget and put your plan together for you to become debt free. I was like, there's no charge for this. This is we're friends. So I remember about a week later, you show up and you have the shank. It was for my wife. So those of you who have listened to the show, my wife's on the news. And you were saying, he's like, this is for your wife. And it was pink, right? It was a case. And basically, so just so you guys know, you don't want to mess with my wife. On her keychain, she has this little teeny tiny shank that you would never guess is a shank. And it literally is like a ring that goes on her finger, and it has a nasty little spike on it. And so it's her keychain shank. And so you're like, I just want to give this to you because, you helped me. And I'm like, all right, I'll take it because this is really cool. So let's talk about some of these. All your knives are literally handmade in your garage.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's that was the key shank, by the way. Yeah. Just a little pokey tool. I talked to my wife, a bunch of other wives that talking about how they are leaving the grocery store or walking out of a parking garage. Like they'll put their keys in their hand. Like that's something that they would do because it would make them feel a little bit more secure, right? Having a key through their knuckles. And I'm kind of just started thinking, I'm like, I can make something that's more efficient than that. So that's kind of where that came from.
Okay, so the next question I have then about these knives is everything's made by you, and I've actually been over to your house. I've watched you go through this process, and there's a lot of, I call it love. There's a labor of love that goes into these knives. How long would you say it takes on average from start to finish to make a knife?
Gosh, from start to finish, if I'm just counting the hours into that one knife, depending on the size, anywhere from 4 to 8 hours into a single blade.
And then every single one of your knives, you number them all. Explain how that works.
I just kind of started numbering right off the bat, right? I'd make a knife and I'd give it to a buddy, or if a guy that was on our team was maybe leaving, going somewhere else or retiring, I'd give them a knife. And I just started numbering them just to keep track, and I just thought it was a cool way to make each one unique and kind of show people where they're at.
So when someone orders a knife from you, they get the knife and then they get a custom letter or something like that in the mail that talks about how this knife was made and a number?
Yeah, so each knife will come with I just call it an info sheet, right? It's kind of like a certificate of authenticity. It's got the knife, the model, the number. It'll have an actual picture of the blade, and then it has like kind of all the specifications of the blade, what kind of steel, how thick the steel is, what's the handle made out of, any special way to care for the metal, if it's a stainless steel versus a high carbon steel. Not to get too technical, but kind of all those directions are on that sheet.
How are you marketing these knives right now? What's your avenue that you're using?
So I use Instagram a ton is kind of one of the main ways.
What's your Instagram handle?
MillMacAZ.
MillMacAZ. Okay, we'll have links in the show notes to anything like we talked about today, but especially links to the Instagram account and to his website. So go ahead and finish about the Instagram page. Has a ton of great knives on there.
Yeah, so there's tons of pictures on there. That's kind of where I'll show off most of the work or any projects I'm working on. And then also on my website, I have a website. It's millmacaz.com.
Okay, millmacaz.com. And then you just transitioned into blogging, which, as you know, I'm a huge fan of blogging. If you have a business and you're not blogging, I think you definitely need to look into it. And I've been telling you, Justin, you need to start a blog. So you just started your blog.
I did.
You send me a link. Hey, I got a post up, and I read it, and immediately I took action from that blog post. And so I have it here in the notes. The blog that I liked, one of the articles you put up there is 5 things you can do right now to make your family safer. Okay, there's 5 things. I want to break down all 5 things real quick and have you kind of give me the cliff notes on it. So the first thing you said is get your face out of your phone.
The world we live in today, right? Like everyone has a smartphone. Technology is going to be part of your life no matter how much you either want it to be or don't want it to be. So that is just really going into not appropriate, but just be conscious of the timing for those things, right? I have talks with my wife and friends all the time about when she's getting out of the car at a store and she's walking up to the store, like you shouldn't be looking at your phone, right? You should be kind of looking at what's around you. You should be paying attention to those things. There's certain times when it's fine and there's certain times when it's not. So just be aware of your surroundings. You don't need to be constantly looking down at that phone. And I think that sucks a lot of people in, and they're just not aware of what's going on around them.
Okay, number 2, take garage door openers out of your car if you don't park in the garage. Why?
Yeah, so it's funny, man. That's like one of the leading ways that burglars get into houses, right? They'll see a car parked outside, they'll break into that car, open the garage door is usually in there, and now they got access to the house. And that kind of ties in to the next one too.
Number 3, lock your doors.
So lock your doors goes in with the garage door in a little bit, because a lot of people do not lock their interior garage door, like the door leading from your garage to your house, right? A lot of people don't lock that door. So especially if you're leaving your garage door opener in there, then like I said, they pop that garage door opener. Now they have free range to your house and it's open. And then just in general, locking doors, right? Due to the nature of my work and what I've spent the last 12 years doing, I'm probably a little bit more aware. I like to say aware, not paranoid, than most. But just keeping doors locked, right? If you're going down the street to a friend's house just for whatever, 30 minutes or something, that 30 minutes is going to turn into an hour. Like, lock your door when you leave. If you're going to be in the backyard with your kiddos, don't leave your front door unlocked. Like, just simple little things like that. Just lock your doors.
Okay. Number 4 was the biggest takeaway for me. This one says, talk to your family and kids. So inside the blog kind of gives me some pointers on what I should ask my kids, and it blew my mind with their responses. So I want you to talk about that.
So that's a big one for me. That's something we try to drive home with our kids, is just having conversations with them about things, right? Like the blog post goes into the stranger danger a little bit, and just kind of ways to test them and ways to kind of see what they're up to, where their mind is. as far as how they would react. So just talk to them about it. Like say, hey, if you were at school or if you're outside or you're walking home from the bus or wherever, you're outside playing in the front yard and someone comes up and they say, hey, I have this, or mommy and daddy gave me this favorite stuffed animal of yours. It's in the back seat. They gave it to me to show you it's okay to come with me. I'm supposed to take you home. There's an emergency. You're supposed to come with me. Like, what do they say? Do they go with them because they have that? Do they want to see it? Do they instantly know that that's wrong? I think just talking to your kids and having those conversations is huge. Just so they're aware, man. Like how our brain works, right? Is everything is based on experiences. So if you've had this conversation with your kid before, then maybe that's going to spark a memory of you having that conversation if that situation ever presents itself, any of those little things. They're just playing at the park and someone says, hey, I have a puppy over here. I got a brand new puppy over at my car. You want to come see it? Your kids need to know, and you need to have that conversation with them that no, you don't go do that. Like that's not okay. And some people will say, well, that's a sad way to think, and I agree, but it is absolutely the world that we live in right now.
That exercise I practiced on our 6-year-old just recently, and it made me feel bad as a dad that the answer that he said wasn't the answer I was looking for. He said, of course I'm going to go. He has my stuffed animal, or she has my stuffed animal. And I paused for a second. I said, well, from reading your blog post, that is a huge takeaway, because I had no idea that's the way he would react. I just assumed, but why would I assume that? He's never been taught. So now we have these conversations, weekly. I'm not like drilling it into them. I'm just mentioning it over and over again. Like you said, everything's based on experiences. So what are they going to do when that time comes? Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the world we live in. All right, number 5, and the last on your blog post was take responsibility for you and your family and your safety.
So yeah, so that one for me, that's kind of what initiated me starting a blog, right? Was just to kind of get words out there, kind of get some of my thoughts out there on this things. I think just with my job and experience, I think I take a lot of things for granted as far as how I think about things and things I'm aware of and things I'm seeing. And I've had tons of friends and tons of my wife's friends come up to me and ask me questions and stuff that I thought was super simple that they don't even think about. So basically all that's saying is just like, you have to realize that you are responsible for you and your family's safety. So however you interpret that, right? For me, that is educating my family, educating my kids on how to be safe currently. And it's for me to be responsible for that, right? That's my responsibility to not be looking at my phone when I'm walking up to a store with my kids or we're walking through the mall, right? That's my responsibility to be aware. It's my responsibility to notice the car that's been driving by our house a bunch that I've never seen in our neighborhood before, to notice the unusual person standing down the street or at your kid's school, that you've never seen when you're picking them up there and they're across the street parking, just looking. Like it's your responsibility to be aware of those things and to make you and your family safe. No one else is going to do that, and no one can do it better than you. So you gotta take those steps, and you got to start somewhere. And that's kind of hopefully what the blog will do, and kind of just bring some ideas and thoughts to people, right? There's a ton of sites out there. There's a ton of tactical training, if you will, a ton of shooting classes and all this stuff to teach you how to deal with a lethal force encounter, right? There's a ton of that stuff, but there's not a ton of stuff on how to be aware and avoid that encounter, how to be aware of things and notice things before it doesn't happen. And that's kind of my goal with the blog is I don't want people to get in those situations. It's not a fun situation to be in, like it's, I've been there before, and it's not fun, right? So the more I can do to educate people on how to be aware and avoid things and see things, precursors before they're going to happen, I feel like I'm doing my job better. The whole reason I became a cop to begin with was to help people out and do that sort of thing.
So where can we find your blog?
So my blog is on my website as well. It's on milmacaz.com. There'll be a knowledge tab, and that's where you kind of find my, I call it my knowledge letter, just trying to help people out.
All right, and we'll have links directly to that knowledge tab. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. I do this with anybody that has a product or service that comes on the show, so you're no different. What can you offer Money Peach listeners on your knives? Anything at all?
Yeah, we can set up like a coupon code or something for 10% off.
Okay, so 10% off on your knives, and I don't expect you to make it last forever. So just keep it up as long as you want. Is there any way you could just easy to remember? Can you use the coupon code PEACH?
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, so if you guys know of anybody that is looking to get a custom knife, or you want one yourself, or you know somebody, these are handmade, custom made in Justin's garage. But you could check out his Instagram, check out his site, but these are handmade, and I know you are pretty busy with them. So what kind of back order or timeline are you looking at right now if you were to order a knife today?
So if you were to order a custom knife, custom meaning like you want a specific handle or a specific model that I may not have in stock, you're looking probably about 12 weeks right now.
Okay, 12 weeks. So business is good.
Yeah, it's so far so good, man. It's been picking up.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, man. You got Justin, who comes on the show. He's serving our community. He's a police officer. He's living debt-free, so he's living well. And then alongside his full-time job as being a police officer, he's doing what he's passionate about. He is becoming an entrepreneur, and he's building something of value. And there's a market for it because obviously, like he said, he's 12 weeks out. So, Justin, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. Anything that we've talked about, there'll be show notes, there'll be links, anything we talked about. And so what's the best way to find out more about you?
Best way to find out more info is just to visit the website and check it out. There's an About Me page. It's got a little bit of bio, and then keep up with the website. There's a notifications tab on there. You can sign up for my newsletter. It'll let you know when knives are available. It'll let you know when a new blog post comes out. All those things are on that too.
Very cool, man. Hey, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Are you tired of living paycheck to paycheck? Are you lying in bed awake at night wondering how you're going to pay the next bill, how you're going to save for kids' college, how you're going to pay off that debt, and when are you going to take that dream vacation that you guys have been talking about forever? Well, stop worrying about it and head on over to awesomemoneycourse.com and see why students all over the world are now taking back control of their money. They're now in the driver's seat of their financial future. awesomemoneycourse.com. Alrighty, guys, we'll see you in next week's episode. Take care. Boom,